Hey guys, so coming back on so that we can finish getting our resin pour on our honey pot done. I know that last week's video was a quick interruption. I am slowly but surely recovering from this gunk that I had. Still might hear it in my voice just because, yeah, recovery has been rather slow. So it's just is one of those things. I've been able to get in the craft space to really pour. I don't think that we're going to need a whole lot. I'm going to do 70 of each just because I want to not short myself, but I truly don't think we're going to need much to finish off the pot. And then we might pour into our dump pour, which would be nice because it still needs quite a bit. So, as you know, I like to get, I should have checked the cup, but it looks good. Pouring as quickly as possible so that we can get this mixing, because that is the waiting part. And I'm just going to verify, I think this might have went to 75 once it all settled. Not quite. It's like a tick over 70. Which this one is more like 75. So pour a little bit of that back in. Alright. Using Counterculture DIY Thin Viscosity. This is B. This is A. If you haven't paid attention, I put little tape on them so that I know that I have the same type going. Just my little trick for it. Let's see. We're still at about 75. Let me see if this one is. Nope, this one is definitely lower. So, I don't want to have too much of B or too much of A. For that matter, you want them even. This is a 1-to-1 resin. So it's not by weight, it's by measure. Oh yeah, this is going to be much better. So you want even parts so that it cures properly. I like to pour B into my big cup first, and then I will pour A in over top of it. I just find where B is more fluid, that's just the best way for me. And then we will add A in. Of course, I scrape my cups extensively. One, it helps for cleanup. Two, it helps make sure that we are getting an accurate measurement. If we are getting all of that in there. I still have this like frog in my throat, so you know, that's fun. I woke up this morning and I was like, dang, I still just got something in my throat, and I was like, I have got to pour some resin. I just am feeling the need. Gotta fulfill it. So, here we are. We are gonna pour some resin. My husband was headed to the store, and I was like, I'm going into the craft space. Look out. One kid is a teenager, so she's still sleeping. The other one, I'm like, I'm going in to record a tutorial. You keep watching your YouTube. I'll come back down a little bit. Alright, so we have our little resin mixer. This is from Hobby Lobby. I always think that I have everything together. But you know me. Something always... Oh, I know what I did with it. I was like, where did my stir stick go? I had used it as a weight on our lid to hold those flowers down. So this is from Hobby Lobby. I like this one because it keeps it upright and it doesn't tilt it, and I can do more with this one. I have a couple smaller ones and they're great, but oh, I shifted my thing away from that edge. And they're great if you're doing smaller projects, but this is better for mixing this much resin, because you can't do, on the tilted ones, you can't do as much resin because it will pour out. So we don't want that. So we're going to let that mix about 3-ish minutes. So, okay, we're at 6 minutes almost, and then we'll go to 9. And I'm getting our honey pot stuff ready. This is the honey pot. It's all nice and cured. I think it just needs a little layer here to fill this in, but it's looking good from what I can see. And then here's our lid. Remember, we had to put this on top just to help hold that down. Of course, because it's silicone, it pops right off. No need to clean it. And so we'll fill that in as well. I am going to fill it. We're going to do this Let's Resin Chameleon Powder Champagne. So it shifts in the light, kind of goes pink to then, you know, champagne color. I like it. And I think that will accent our little fig pieces really nicely in the bottom and the lid, just to give us a good offset. Of course, this is just our dump pour, so this one is fun. We get to do whatever we want with it. It's always fun to do. Let's get a cup to throw mica in to mix for that. Well, that cup is really dirty. Let's not use that one. Let's just toss that one so I don't do that again. This one's much better. Now we could brush some of this on if we wanted, but I think it's going to look good once we mix it, so I'm not going to worry about that. And our dump pour is just fun to do. See what we come up with. Paper cups. Might have to get more paper cups. I go through the paper cups a lot more, just because they bend. So for pouring, I like that. Whereas if you try to do that with these, it will break. That's a plastic one. So I go through the paper ones a lot faster. And then, but we'll probably do some alcohol ink, because it's really not going to take much of this resin to do the other. We're getting there. We're about at 3 minutes. Let it go just a little longer. Now, I will do a self-stir on this just to make sure that it's gotten all sides and everything. It's not like this is perfect, but it does help tremendously. And I have found if you just do it enough to be able to get your stir stick out. Now this does suction to the bottom, so you got to be careful. So I'm going to bring this up just a little bit so y'all can see. I love this so that I don't have to zoom in. Oops, okay, that fell. That's fine. Zoom in and mess with the camera, but I can bring y'all closer. So I like to go all through the bottom, spiraling all around the edges a few times, and then I'm going to also scrape our tool on the side and then bring that back in to the actual mix because we want it to get a full mixture. Now it's a little cool in my workspace today, but I think we'll be fine. It's not like cool, it's not cold. It's just not my normal temp. So your room temperature can change how your resin's going to react and how quickly it may or may not cure up. So just be aware of that. Just hitting with a little bit of heat, just to help some of those bubbles come to the surface. Also, just let that heat up a little bit. And I'm going to do this to where I pop some of those up. And then we're going to let it set for just a few moments. Just to let a few more of those bubbles decide to come up. Where we're not doing a bloom here right now, we're not worried about it thickening a ton. I don't need it to be super thick for this part. If we're doing a bloom, you want your clear to thicken so that it doesn't, when we add the colorants of that bloom, that the colorants don't just all merge together and turn brown. But we're not doing that, so we're fine. So we'll just let it rest for just a couple moments though. It's not going to need a ton. Because some of those bubbles are coming to the surface, which is good. That's what we want. And I always do my heat gun on low. I rarely go to high. Just because it's really just not needed. Alright, so we're going to pour some in here. And I'm going to pour more than I know what I need, because I'm going to add some of this beautiful chameleon champagne to our dump pour. So I'm not worried about having too much of this mica. Let me bring this over. We're starting to kind of get a system, y'all, which is nice. Okay. Oh yeah, it has this protective thing on it, which is hard to get off when you have gloves on. So, little tweezer action, we can get that off. Look at this. I'm going to do 2 scoops. Oh my goodness, that's gorgeous. I'm going to do 2 scoops. I'm going to leave that open for just a moment and see if I want more mixed in. And with mica, the big thing is like, you want to make sure that you fully mix the resin with the mica. You have a dry ingredient going into a wet ingredient, and you want those to fully congeal together so that you don't have any powdery spots and you don't have any resin that's not been touched by the mica, essentially. So it's just key to really mix it good. And I truthfully think that that's probably the consistency that I want it and the coloring that I want. If I do more, I don't think it's going to give me the look I want. So I think 2 scoops was perfect. I'll just finish mixing all the way to the bottom. Oh, I love that chameleon champagne. That pink that is coming out with the champagne color is fire, as my kids would say. It is spot on. Okay. So, I'm going to move our honey pot over here, just so that we can see it. Like I said, it's not going to take much. I've got some air bubbles that have come to the surface. I'm just going to pop those really quick. That way I'm not pouring them into the piece. Not that we couldn't pop them once they're in, but since I can see them and get them gone. And I'm doing a real slow pour into here because I don't have a lot of space without going over, and I don't want to end up going over. That's not my goal anyway. You want to try to get it as covered as possible without going over. And when you pour slowly, you're going to help with your bubbles. You're not going to have as many air pockets. And you want a continuous flow, because if you stop, you're going to create a air bubble in your resin. So it's a little bit of a fine art to make sure that you're consistently going. This one's going to be a little bit unique to see if we can cover that petal bloom, that bud. But I think we got it, and we're right at the bridge. So now when we do the heat on this, you have to be careful because we are really close to the edge. So we don't want to push the resin too much, and when you heat it up, it thins the resin temporarily. And so when that happens, it's going to be more fluid and potentially move more and end up going over. So you just don't want to get too crazy, especially in one spot. You see how I'm really actively moving our heat gun. The other thing we're going to do with these is we're going to take a spritz of rubbing alcohol. This is a spray bottle from the Dollar Tree, and we're just going to spritz those. That's going to pop all those micro bubbles in there, and that's why you see the glitter just glistening. And that looks fantastic. Both pieces look really good. Now, you can see the mica moving and pulling to the center. It's really happening right here on this one. Probably because that's where I spritzed more, that angle. And so it's pushing the mica colorants to the center. And that's normal. Your resin is going to pull to the center, and it's going to self-level. So you got to make sure you have a level space that you're working on. Now, we have our dump pour, which is fun, because we can do whatever we want with it. So I'm going to pour some of this champagne in. Not all of it. And then I'm going to pour a little bit of clear. Not a ton. I'm going to put a drop of, I should have shook this, but that's okay. It was shook pretty recently, so I'll put a drop of our purple alcohol ink, a little bit more of the clear, and I'm just having fun with this. I'm not, like, there's no science here. We'll see what it does. A few drops of our turquoise, because it's oh so pretty. I like that one. I want a white to go in. This one's not open. Let's see. What's on? This one might have dried out on me. Can't tell. Oh, there's liquid in there. Okay. I was like, I don't know, maybe it dried out, but no, I can feel liquid. This is just a white alcohol ink. It helps like push through, and it's going to give us some milky coloring, which is just kind of fun to add in. Look at that. The way that's looking. I'm going to go down the sides. Just kind of a fun swirling of that, hopefully. We'll see how it turns out. And then rest of the champagne that I have. Oops. Let's get a stir stick. Now, if you've watched previous videos, you know that I mostly use things that I can reuse. The plastic cup is not one that will get reused, but the stir stick is cleanable. I was going to say washable, but I mean, you can wash it once you have the resin off of it. I would not wash resin in your sink, because once it goes down the drain and hardens, you are going to create a plumbing nightmare. Alright, cup disposed. Well, I think that's given a really unique reaction in the side from what I can see. Don't know for certain until we unmold her, or him, as my daughter would say. How do you know it's a... Like when I call a bug, I'm like, oh, there he is. And she'll be like, how do you know it's a boy? I'm like, I don't know. So we do have some micro bubbles forming. That's to be expected. I'm not surprised. We'll address those in a moment. I love how this purple is going. It's creating some bubbles, which I don't love. I hope this will pop those. There we go. We popped them. Let's just give us a little bit of heat. Help disperse that too. And we'll hit a little heat here. Yeah, that's good. I'll get you. I don't need you to go crazy. Alright, let's pour more of this in. I might finish this one off, which is exciting. I see a lot of bubbles in there, so I'll get with some heat. And then probably spritz with a little rubbing alcohol just to get some of those bubbles popped. Let's finish with this chameleon powder. This is teal, so it kind of goes with our teal coloring that we've got going on. Let's just finish with it. So I always pour, well, I don't always do this, but I have learned that you should pour your resin in before you put the mica in, because otherwise if you put your mica into the cup, when you pour your resin in, you're gonna have a mica cloud happen and a poof of mica occur, and that is a little bit crazy to deal with. So it just has been something I've learned through trial and error. Now, there are times that I still accidentally will, you know, go the other direction with it, but try. And again, I am getting as much out as I can. So, one, it keeps our cleanup a lot easier. And two, it's not wasteful. This part, it's not for the measuring sake. Alright. Get a new stir stick. Oops, I grabbed two and my gloves are messy, so we'll have to clean both of those. This is not going to take as much, so I did just a small scoop of it. probably should not handle that lid while my gloves are gross, but, and then we're going to mix that in. Again, making sure it's fully distributed. That's really pretty. I think I want to put a drop of purple in, or 2, or 3, and a drop or 2 of our white, and then I'm going to top it with this teal. Well, we ended up with 4 on that. So I have rubbing alcohol on my space. Put that on the napkin, paper towel, and just wipe my gloves off before I pick up my heat gun. I just want that to kind of distribute a little bit and not be stuck in that spot. And keep hitting these pieces with some heat. Okay. Now let's pour this beautiful teal mica in. And I'm going to just do it in a swirling action. The mica is heavier than the alcohol ink and the alcohol resin. So it is sinking. So when I'm swirling this, our purple alcohol ink is coming to the top, and our mica is sinking to the bottom. I have such a little amount. I don't want to waste it, but like, I don't know if it can fit in here. It is stunning. I really like this. Now that is super full. A little fuller than I normally would go with, but that's fine. I am going to just kind of do a little swirl. It probably won't stay, but I like the idea of it. So very easeful. To do this. There's definitely some micro bubbles coming up. So a little splatter of that. And that's even going to make a different look too with your resin. So just always be aware of that. Okay. So I'm going to move this to my other workspace, and I'm going to cover it with our, I have a net that is for food, basically outside picnicking. It's got a fine netting on it, so it won't allow little gnats to get in it. So I'm going to keep these on my leveling table and just move them very carefully so that I do not spill the resin out, which I almost did on our duck floor, which I think it's going to come out beautifully. And then put that cover over, and then we have this whole space that I can show the cleanup, which is nice because I don't think I've had a good space before to show that. So this one is what we use to like wipe my gloves on. It's just been kind of our catch-all. So I will use it to just get a first kind of cleanup on our sticks and things, because you know what, it's gonna go in the garbage anyway, and if we can get some of this resin out like that, like, let's do it. So, and then we start, you know, I start with the last one that I did, to work to get it as clean as possible. And then I go to the next one. And then it's not going to hurt this one that hasn't had any work on it, because, again, any extra we can just get off and onto this paper towel is less that I have to deal with on the next round. And then we just continue this process, essentially. Rubbing alcohol. I should have done that other one, that other cup, because it's about done, but that's okay. And I ended up, everything is protected in silicone, but I ended up with resin like on the silicone mats. So you can either leave that to harden, or you can wipe it with your paper towel while you have it, and it will come right up. I do a little bit of both. Sometimes I wipe it off, sometimes I wait and let it harden. If you wipe it, you gotta make sure you get it all, otherwise you'll end up with this like little bubbly cured resin that is a lot harder to get off. If you leave it in a perfect bubble, it's usually pretty smooth to get it off. This one I can see has some on the outside that I had missed. So, and you'll figure out your routine. Some people leave them upside down. Now, the 2 cups we use to like pour into, they're not going to cure because they don't have both parts. So, those you are going to have to full on clean, no matter what. That's just how it is. But this is always a good time to like kind of wipe off your workspace, clean up messes, you know, put things back together. And I finally feel like we're getting a rhythm. It's only been like over a year, and we're getting this rhythm down with our tutorials and our videos. Oh, look at this glove. It is totally shredding as I'm cleaning. So, it's going to go in the garbage. Okay, that was pretty clean. So, I'm going to use this. I just flipped it to the other side and use it to go ahead and wipe these off because they're pretty well clean already. But yeah, like, goodness, I might actually, it's only taken me this long to get it all together, finding what works. And I actually had another table clear that is level that I could set those others on, so. Typically I just take the last one to wipe off my gloves. Obviously if they split, it goes straight to the garbage. If they don't split, then I can use them for maybe another round. So I just work them off. And voila! There we go. So glad y'all could join me for part 3 of this series. The last part will be the fun part. We get to unmold these pieces, and we're going to do a little cleanup on them so that they're just done and ready to sell or gift or whatever you're going to do with them. So, hope you guys are enjoying. Again, my apologies for the interruption on this series. Obviously, did not plan to get myself sick and recovery be so long. So, hope you stick it out with me, and I will be back soon for part 4. Thanks for watching. Bye.